Good morning, all. A warm welcome to all the wonderful people who have joined us this day. We hope you and your family members are doing well during this pandemic. My name is Morali, and I head the sales at Kaveri 4, and I would be the host for this webinar. I'm proud to be a part of Kaveri Group for the last 11 years. It's associated with various automobile brands spread across Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Before we start, I would want to take you through a few house rules. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Zoom chat box. We'll bring them up during the question and answer session at the end of the program. Also, to ask your questions, please raise your hand at the end of the program and the admin will unmute you. If you're connected via laptop or desktop, click on the reactions button, which is visible on the bottom of the screen, and you can choose raise hand over there. And you'll be on the front screen, and we will allow you to. We'll unmute you. So that you can raise your questions. And if you're connected through mobile, there will be three dots at the bottom of your mobile screen. So you can click on the three dots and you can click on the raise hand option. Great. And during this pandemic, opportunity to succeed may be looking narrow to many. So our today's guest speaker, Mr. Ramesh Wangal, founder and chairman of Katra Group, will talk on how to create an opportunity during a crisis. So this may help many of us. Now, may I request Group Managing Director, Dr. MP Sham, to introduce our guest speaker to all of us. Sham, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you are healthy and safe at home. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Ramesh Wangal and the Katra Group. Many of them from the Katra Group are on this webinar, to this morning's webinar. Ramesh has been a very dear personal friend of mine for a couple of years. I would like to introduce Ramesh. The Katra Group is focused on three sectors: the Ayurvedic natural products, nutraceuticals, and value-added agriculture. Ramesh is the chairman of the Kerala Ayurveda and other companies in the Katra Group. Kerala Ayurveda Limited is one of the oldest Ayurvedic companies with full spectrum listed Ayurvedic company in the world. The company enshrines the authentic traditional form of Ayurveda and the yoga form from Kerala, with an ancient lineage going back to 5,000 years. Its footprint spans academies, wellness resorts, hospitals, clinics, products and services across India and the US. Kerala Ayurveda has over 400 products and touches 1 lakh patients per year. Kerala Ayurveda Academy, USA, based in California, has trained and certified 2,000 graduates and has over 6,000 hours of education programs certified by the states of California and Washington in the USA. Ramesh started his career with Procter & Gamble between the year 1980 to 1985 in Geneva, Switzerland, with marketing assignments in Europe, Middle East, Central America, the Caribbean, and West Africa. Ramesh then moved to PepsiCo between 1985 to 1997. He was President Asia Pacific for PepsiCo Foods and a member of the PepsiCo's Worldwide Executive Council. Prior to this role, he led PepsiCo's landmark entry into India in the early 1990s. This was widely considered as a pioneer in India's opening of foreign direct investment. Ramesh was awarded the PepsiCo High Performance Leadership Award in 1992. Ramesh Wangal's name is engraved in the PepsiCo Walk of Achievement at PepsiCo Global Headquarters in New York. From 1997, Ramesh was the chairman of Seagram's, now called Pernod Ricard, and part of its global executive board. He was also the company's joint venture partner in their India business. Ramesh was also on the board of Infosys Technologies as its first independent director between 1997 and 2002. In 2001, Ramesh founded the Scandon Group, now called Cambridge Technologies, an Indian listed specialist in IT and BPO company. In 2009, Cambridge became part of FTSE listed exchanging in the UK. The Katra Group also funds and supports the Asha Foundation, which helps special children who are impacted by cerebral palsy and operates an integrated school for children with autism. The Asha Foundation is a key stakeholder of the Katra Group. Ramesh received his engineering degree from the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai, and his MBA from the London Business School. He became the first Asian to be awarded the London Business School's Alumni of the Year honor in 1996. Served on its global advisory board between 1998 and 2008. He is now a distinguished friend of the school. Ramesh was also honored as a distinguished alumnus by the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai in 2007. Ramesh is an avid outdoor enthusiast and has strong interest in wellness, philanthropy, and spirituality. Beyond all this, he is a fantastic human being. Thank you, Ramesh. Thanks for agreeing to address our team. Welcome, Ramesh. It's yours now.
Okay. Namaskaram, and I'm delighted to be here. Crisis to opportunity. And we are in a crisis now, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, because I think it's like a war. So I want to actually relate to you a famous speech. This was in 1947. The Prime Minister of a well-known country now addressed his countrymen and he said, "My countrymen, we're at a point which is the worst inflection point in our history. We are either forever going to be doomed as a country which is in the lowest possible development stage of the world, or we have a chance to rise out." I wonder whether you can guess the country which is in that situation. Here is something which says this country was in a crisis. In the midst of crisis, there is great opportunity. So if you move off that particular slide, Mani, I'd like to get back onto the screen. So so this prime minister is Japan. And today they are probably one of the most prosperous countries in the world after the US. You ask yourself what happened. At the end of the war, ladies and gentlemen, there were two victors. And it was not the British and it was not the Russians who suffered the most. The Americans came in much later. They came in for the last year and a half of the war. But the two losers in the war are the ones which are Germany and Japan, which have actually flourished to a level which is unimaginable. Leaving behind Britain, which prior to that had its largest empire and was the center of the world. You ask yourself, why? Why is Britain in the dregs of history, though it won the war? And why is Japan or Germany? Japan got annihilated. It lost both, two cities were completely destroyed, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it all basically says what Einstein just said in that particular quote. Crisis and opportunity are connected. There is a very thin line of demarcation between crisis and failure. Now, this is not something which is at a high leadership level. What this relates is to you and me. I come from a simple middle-class family. When I was growing up and my father sent me to IIT, our salary was 1,100 rupees a month. He used to pay me 150 rupees to study, and I earned some money on the side. I used to drive new Jeeps from Bombay to Bangalore, and I got paid 15 paisa per kilometer. So I actually had my first job in the automobile industry, which is why I relate to you. I want us to be able to understand the seeds of opportunity of changing crisis to opportunity lies in the brain. And I want you, therefore, to open up your minds to imagination and to thinking afresh. Human beings, nations, resist change. We don't like change. We have problems changing. Why? Because when we change, We've got a sense of discomfort. Yet, the one certain thing about our lives is every moment we are changing. We are not what we were 10 years ago, and definitely not what we were 25 years ago when we were probably much younger. Life is a continuous process of change on a day-to-day basis, yet that's the most difficult thing for us to accept. We're all seeking certainty, but the only certain thing is everything is uncertain. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to relate to you a few crisis areas which I've experienced in my life, and I didn't quite know what to do, and the struggles and the thoughts which went through, and then how I kind of stumbled, coped into finding a solution. And then want to see whether that serves you with connecting yourself to some deeper part of you to be able to come out looking differently. After those examples, I will try and relate what I think could be an idea for your industry, which is the automobile industry. And maybe I can relate to something for the people from our Katra group who are attending this conference. One of the first things I know is I was an early Procter & Gamble. I went to the Middle East. And in the Middle East, I met in 1979 our Dubai distributor for Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble does Pampers and Ariel and Tide and a whole bunch of other brands, big consumer business. And the guy, our distributor, said to my boss, an Englishman, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Roberts, what can this boy do for me? Yani, Indians are the A, B, C of life. Ayah, bearer, cook. Here I was, IIT, London Business School, the bonfire of my vanity. Whatever I thought of myself is gone. And I want to say, I was shattered. But I brought myself back because I thought, let me try and prove to this guy something. And I basically, two months later, when I delivered for him because I worked very hard, he came back and he told my boss that this guy is one of the best I've dealt with. Please send him again. So he overcome my racial difference and he became an ally when he sees I can help him. This all comes down into only one thing: how you can relate to the other person. And we'll come to it and come back towards in terms of our industry right now of customer centricity. So the real issue was he needed to see value. He had a bias against me on race because he thought I was Indian. But if you can flip that and say being Indian is an advantage, you're changing crisis to opportunity. The second was Pepsi. When we brought Pepsi into India, it was a very difficult thing because India had about 130 crores of foreign direct investment, not 30,000 crores, but 30 crores. Today, we have something like maybe 400,000 crores of foreign direct investment into India. Those days, it was 30 crores. This was 1985. For 4 years, we fought with the government to allow a consumer good company, Pepsi, to come into the country. In order to do that, we did a lot of things in terms of agricultural exports and all kinds of things. And we finally got approval. And when we got approval, we were absolutely thrilled. It was at my high point. And then the government changed. It went from one government to the other, and the new government said, I'm sorry, we are reviewing your project, you go back. Finally, after a long struggle, when PepsiCo finally made an arrangement on agriculture, on exports, along with doing PepsiCo and doing snack food in India, I had a meeting with the minister. And he basically said to me, I want to talk about your brand name. The brand was Pepsi. And we had printed, because rules in that day asked you to do, like Hero Honda, they wanted you to do something like Pepsi something. So we said Pepsi Era. One brand name is foreign, the other brand name is Indian. So that I thought would work. We had printed millions of bottles. And he told me in a very nice fashion, Bhaiya, mere ko ek sapna aaya. I had a dream last night. Your brand name should not be Pepsi or anything. It should be Leher Pepsi. Now, you think about it. I was a fairly junior employee in the total scope of things in PepsiCo, who had been sent from abroad to try to get Pepsi into India. I had worked for 4 years. We had undergone 300 questions in Parliament, 8,000 articles in the press. And here was this guy, after I have printed 5 or 10 million bottles, because those were glass bottles and the print was etched inside. And we were told, hey, you got to change this. It needs to be Leher Pepsi. And I was trying to explain to him that's not possible, sir, because it's so difficult. I mean, we are doing everything according to the rules. He said, I will tell you something. If you don't accept it, I will cancel your registration. And I've given you 1 hour to make the decision whether you accept or not. Now, I don't have the authority. And for one thing, for big companies, including Mercedes, for example, if you attach a brand name to that, supposing you called it Mercedes Akshara as a brand name on the car, Mercedes would be livid. That would not be accepted. In a sense, one of the core bases of value, 80%, 70% of the value of a company is in its brand name. So when this happened, I was absolutely petrified. And in terms of this, there was just no way it could work. So I said to him, sir, it's very difficult. He said, I'm telling you, this is my decision. If you don't do it, you're gone. And I'm sitting in my, because he gave me an hour in the ante room, and I don't know what to do. This is a real crisis. I have no idea. I'm not experienced. I don't have the maturity. I was 34 years old. What do you do? Finally, I thought about it, and I said, I'll do 2 things. I will take a call, which makes, to me, business sense. We have tried so hard to get in Pepsi. He wants me to say Leher Pepsi, and my Hindi was pretty poor then. Now it's much better. I didn't even know what Leher means. So I said, okay, Leher Pepsi, sir, okay. And I thought that I should prepare my resignation letter because I was sure I'd get fired. Because the chairman of the company was quite friendly with me, even though I was much younger. There's one thing I knew, the brand name was crucial, and you don't mess around with the brand name. Well, I talked to my boss that evening and I said, Nestor, I have a problem. It's good news and it's bad news. The good news that Pepsi got approved and everything is done. But the bad news is we have a different brand name. Yes, there is some loss of the having to, print the bottles again and make the bottles again. But the bigger problem is it's called Leher Pepsi now. He went silent and I never heard from him for 3 weeks. And I thought I was gone. I sent in my resignation letter. And then he said, one line, I'm going to talk to Don Kendall, the chairman. 2 days later, I got a response saying, Kendall reluctantly accepts. So let's go forward. So I thought I was safe. And I didn't go back to the US for at least 4 months afterwards, even though I was called for all kinds of meetings. What's very interesting, a couple of years later, Kendall speaking at a Davos conference, he said, there are 3 reasons why PepsiCo succeeds. Today, it's almost $100 billion. And one of the reasons he mentioned was people like me. And he mentioned my example and said, people like Ramesh Pangal, because you took chances and you took some risk. And he said he demonstrated that and he actually put forward this entire situation of uncertainty in my heart. about what to do. He said, you committed the company when you had a lot of problems, but you had the courage, and we need people to take risks because nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now, what to do with Leher Pepsi? First of all, it's saying, give me a Pepsi rather than saying, give me a Leher Pepsi. It's very different from a brand perspective. And I'm saying to you, how do we solve this problem? So next, rules changed. And we found that brand names were allowed and Pepsi did not have to basically do something else. And we knew we had this Leher, but we were not quite sure what to do because we still had Leher Pepsi. Around that time, we had a commercial to put up. And this commercial, we actually selected a brand name called Yahi Hai Right Choice Baby, because just like Leher was a combination of Hindi and English, we actually took on this commercial, Yahi Hai Right Choice Baby, aha. What that did to Pepsi, it broke the barrier between the English speaking and the vernacular speaking. And that had an enormous impact in terms of not only Pepsi's business, but society. I know even Shankar, the famous cartoonist, did a cartoon when he put a politician there and he said, yeah, he not the right choice, baby, aha. Because it became a part of a dialogue. And I was on a train going from Lucknow to Delhi, and I essentially came across somebody saying, Yahi hai right choice, baby. It became a part of the lingo. And Pepsi in its initial years catapulted to real growth, and it became the first brand. Why? Because it touched a chord at the customer level, on a deeper level, the consumer level of a Pepsi, and he felt it was okay, even if he was Hindi speaking or Kannada speaking or whatever, that for him to feel comfortable having a Pepsi. And that was the principal area. And after that, everything changed. MTV, the music channel, which used to be all Western music, started bringing in mixtures. And there was this famous Shotgun Murugan. I don't know whether you know, that was on Channel V. Or politicians started talking in both Hindi and English. And today, almost every politician does a mixture between Hindi and English, and it's comfortable. So in many ways, we brought English or Kannada English or whatever it is into the commonality. In that, you're able to create a bond with the customer. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in simple terms, there is an opportunity for us to completely reimagine, reinvent ourselves in terms of crisis. This crisis is sad. People have died, and it's something that we've got to pull ourselves. Just as the Prime Minister of Japan told his country, you have one last chance to pull yourself out of this hole, or forever you'll perish in the dustbin of history. That's what he said. In the same way, whether it's in your industry or ours or anything else, we have to completely reinvent the way we think. And to do that, we start with a clean sheet of paper. Let's forget there are any rules and start at the beginning. Very uncomfortable, but very needed. I was reflecting on some of your opportunities. As I understand the dealer industry, and it's based on a short discussion I had this morning, you have 14, in the automobile, 14 major car brands. And your dependence is on the strength of the car brand, the products that they have, and obviously its pricing and the quality and the total consumer proposition, from Mercedes to Honda to a whole bunch of others. And the real question is, how do you actually look at this crisis? If I understood your core, the basic core is you make some money in selling the cars, but actually your real opportunity lies in the service. Because basically for service, that is where your labor is involved, and that is where you have opportunities to create a differential. Pricing may be set by the manufacturer when you buy the car, but when you provide the service, you have a chance to make a better link. Of course, you make the relationship with the consumer at the beginning when you buy the car from the dealership. but you cement it through a continued relationship. And your margins lie in service, not in terms of sales. So how do you tackle? And I think you've done very well by going into the digital medium. But let's look at this, and I'm only giving you a sense from an outside. I'm not that educated in your industry. Let's look at it from within a digital medium. You have gone digital. You're organizing video, let's say, sales meet with your customers. You're telling them how good a Mercedes is. Let's take Mercedes as an example. And then you're trying to talk to them, build a relationship. In fact, Vivek Sundar, when he talked about customer centricity, to those of you who attended, he talked about the fact that he bought a car because the Volvo car that he bought had a very good seller or a salesperson who actually talked to him and connected with him on a human level. So that relationship is very important. The question is, how can you take that forward into the service? What imagination can we apply? And the answer is to think about it like building a total ecosystem. For example, look at Apple, and I'll come back to the car again, the Mercedes. You look at the Apple. If I ask you, what was an Apple device? The phone started with an iPod, and its real growth was because of the iPhone. It started with an iPod, but the real relationship is the iPhone. And today, it's worth over $1,300 billion. And it's a huge company. What was the relationship? If I asked you and you'd say, well, it was a device by which I call people. But if you look at it today, you do everything. And if any of you look around, whether it's Apple or Samsung, but why is Apple more valuable than Samsung on a global basis? Because it is bonded. It's a mobile relationship. There isn't something in humor. A bunch of women were asked, who would they rather be without? Their phone or their husbands for a week? All of them opted for the husbands. Let the husbands go out for a week, but I'll stay with my phone. Don't take the phone away. So these phones have created an inextricable relationship, and it's a total ecosystem. Today, you have an Apple computer, you have an Apple phone, you have an Apple TV. And if you want advice on Google, you go on the Apple server or the search engine, everything is connected. So what you have is a 360 connection, and Apple is actually the filter through which you look at the world. In the same way, can you, all of us, create a way by which we go through the filter of that particular, of your offerings towards anything that he does in that space? So if you look at the Mercedes dealership, what can we do to enhance customer centricity? My preliminary thought would be, if the business is in service, what is the one principal problem of perception about company-owned service? I've had a Mercedes car for many years. The last one I bought from you. And the problem I had is I always perceived, oh, Mercedes car dealership repair is extremely expensive. Maybe after the warranty period, if it's 1 year, 2 years, I look for somebody who's good but much cheaper. Because you'll always joke that the cost of repair is like I could buy a new car. And that's a problem that any of the manufacturers, rather the official dealers, will have. So my question is, you can either be defensive and saying, no, I am cheaper. But does that work? No commodity business ever succeeded. Low price never won anything. It's a question of taking a high price and supporting it. How do you do that? Supposing you say, in a message to the consumer, which you go digitally on an individual basis with intense social media, you pass one message along. Come to me because, you can actually say upfront and say, why do you hesitate to go to the company dealer? And that's because you believe I'm more expensive. Yes, I'm more expensive, but what I do is I give you authentic parts, I give you genuine service, and I'm giving you real value. And above all, I'm giving you protection. I'll give you protection. I can give you long-term insurance. And frankly, I'm a better for you to spend a little bit more and be sure and get the right quality and genuine parts. And on top of that, you can add one more dimension. And maybe you can say, what if I make you a member of a Mercedes club? And in that club, say Akshara Mercedes Club, everybody in my area, I'm actually going to give you a membership by which you can get certain benefits in terms of value, partly on, say, price, because you're paying some kind of annual fee of some sort, partly in terms of making them a club where you give them information, do rallies, have car club meetings in every area. And maybe you can create something which connects Akshara to the customer in some manner. If you are able to create that measure and say, Akshara is Mercedes in Karnataka, for example. And frankly, when you go for service, what you have to do, you have to overcome two things. You overcome the sense in the consumer mind that you are too expensive. That you can do by basically creating or establishing your value provision and the genuineness and the protection that you are able to give. The second thing you can do is, I'm part of your family, like an Apple phone. I will do everything for you. If you don't, I'll pick up the car for service from your home. I will basically give you a spare car. If you have a membership with me, I will, if you have a family wedding, I can provide you a few extra cars. And frankly, you can be imaginative. I know your business also has moved to used cars. Maybe you could have a used car service which provides them a car on demand when they require. You can think differently. But what is your real objective? Your real objective is to keep in touch with the customer, because the initial sale, you make a margin, which is what it is, and it's limited. Your real money comes from continued service or care and that protection from that. And maybe there are ways by which within your manufacturer, you can define something different in terms of building a relationship with your customer. So to my mind, if you build this relationship, you can actually do it in other things. It could be a Mercedes jacket for the winter. I know Mercedes has a lot of this gear, but you're trying to personalize this in a manner so that you versus Sundaram is the preferred alternative. You in a sense, I think an approach wherein you overcome his problem, and the membership gives you an advantage because you say, I'll give you a better price. It's like insurance. When you have a health problem, you can basically take out few lakhs of rupees. How do they make it work? They make it work because everybody pays insurance and only a small percentage claims. In the same way, if your cars are basis, you give them a protection on the repair, on the service, beyond the warranty, beyond the used car, give them a kind of a usage by which you get forward. And that could be an idea that you look at. I don't have a lot more to say, except I can tell you this. My worst crisis was, and I'm relating back to Pepsi, and I want to explain this. It's a personal crisis that I had. As the company got approved in September 88, my son and sister died in December, 2 months afterwards. I was completely shattered. The new government wanted to review everything. And I was absolutely did not know. My only child died. And I did not know what to do. I was wondering whether I should, why I should live. And in that somewhere or the other, I found the energy to live. And I found myself the strength to live because I looked differently. Because every morning, for me, my son had died, but the sun still rose in the sky. Nothing changed. So I would ask you to do one thing, to remember every day there is a new sun. Every day there is a new day. And every day you have a chance to start afresh. The most important thing is keep an open mind. remove the prejudices, remove the complications of yesterday. You cannot drive a car by looking at the rear view mirror. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. It was truly, truly inspiring, and a lot of messages also come from our members and colleagues appreciating on the overall program. Thank you so much for motivating us. And we are all consuming the Leher Pepsi because I am 81 bought, so we had a chance to consume Leher Pepsi. Now we don't see the Leher Pepsi much now, so we never knew what exactly was the brand name behind it. Thank you so much for sharing the story of Leher Pepsi here. Thank you so much.
Tell you something about Leher. Then what happened? Leher Pepsi we didn't have to use anymore, and then we were actually, because initial foray from Pepsi into snack food failed. The chips were too expensive, the potato chips. So what we did, then we thought, alright, we go in with something Indian. So we wanted to do bhujia. And then we said, we call it Leher. If you've seen, you'll see Leher. Leher Kurkure was a later innovation. So in some ways, we used that Leher brand name, and the visibility we got through that, we applied to the snack business. So there are a lot of ways of making a problem into a success. Similarly, the Reliance World Cup, in 1994, basically, we were trying to become the official sponsor of the Cricket World Cup. We lost it to Coke, who bid double. We were absolutely defeated. What to do? And then somebody had a brainwave when we were debating this and discussing this. So we said, because they were going to say, Reliance World Cup, Coca-Cola, the official soft drink of the Reliance World Cup. So we came up with a line, there's nothing official about it. And frankly, both these, there's nothing official about it, or before that, Yahi hai right choice, baby aha, actually created a connection. So what I would say is, never let us assume that a crisis is a problem which actually devastates you and finishes you off. Figure it out, like the case of Japan, like the case of Germany, how they have reinvented themselves. While all the British car companies died, Austin, MG, Humber, Rover, all of them died. The Japanese cars succeeded, and the German cars have the high end. You know that. So let us assume that a crisis is an opportunity, because everything starts with the filter with which we look. If that filter is green, we will see green. If we see black, we will see black. That's the point that I want to be able to make to you. Things start here, you build conviction here, you get energy, and you move. I'm trying to look at some questions. If there are any, I'm happy to answer. But if there's anything else I can do, let me know.
Sure. There are a few questions. And friends, if you have any questions, you can post it in the Zoom box, in the chat box, or you can raise your hand using the Zoom app. So the first question from Mr. Prashant. So how do we enforce ideas to our manufacturers to boost brand sales for an extended support on benefits as we're being a distributor or a dealer?
So your question is, how do you be able to get manufacturer support for what you're doing? Is that right?
So it's like, how do we enforce ideas to boost our manufacturers' brand sales for an extended support on benefits as we're being a distributor or a dealer?
I think, look, if you can, to me, the bigger question will be, just as everything, look at the travel industry. The travel industry gradually disappeared. A travel agency industry. Why? Because people went direct. And frankly, the travel agencies were not giving enough of a service. The same thing can happen in the car industry too. I saw something recently that Mercedes is announcing that it wants to go directly dealing with customers. And that may very well be. The question now is how can you retain salience? How can you continue to be relevant? The relevance comes in your contact with the customer, and the relevance comes from your being able to give creative ideas to the manufacturer and give them ideas that they haven't thought about. So they're saying, as far as India is concerned, or Karnataka or Madurai or wherever you have your dealership, I'm going to give you special connection with that specific customer. You have an ability to deal with them, today's terms, digitally. So, and you connect them judiciously. People are worried about going to a repair shop. I'll pick it up from you. I'm sure you could already be doing that. Or you find a way of making it much easier. And the same thing applies to, say, our Kerala Ayurveda business, and many people are there. How do you reach the customer? Who's your customer? Ultimately, it's the doctor or the consumer. How do I create a relationship with him? It's not about selling to a distributor once and then forgetting about it. It's about, how do I create a bonding? Like the Apple phone does, or for that matter, Samsung, which is not that much of a bond as an Apple phone. Because in the Apple phone, you pay double the price. Why? Because of a relationship. So ultimately, I think that's the point to remember. I would suggest that if you come up with a plan, and big companies are often less flexible, if you come up with a plan which is imaginative, connected with your local area on a deep basis for customer contact, you can actually change the whole game. And look at what's happening. There's so much technology, but you've got to adopt digital as a medium and feel comfortable, not move it as an alternative because the landline is not working. If I had looked at it as a replacement to the landline, we would not have 1 billion phones in the country. It actually became much more. That's the key. So in this relationship that Akshara creates with its consumer, or Kaveri, can you create a stronger bond? That's the challenge, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have another question from Mr. Vignesh. How you bridge technology and management for building successful group and being an inspiration to future entrepreneurs?
I think you have to start from the scratch and say your connection with the consumer is through technology. And particularly in COVID, every rule has changed. I mean, you just see Hyatt Regency in Bombay could not pay a single salary for the last 2 months. It's a big brand name. And can you imagine the global impact for Hyatt hotels to do that? And I'll give you another example. Hertz collapsed. Hertz, the largest car rental company, collapsed in America. So the question is, the rules are different. So I would say an entrepreneur starts with a point of difference. And he says, I now have a certain type of contact, which is digital, because today we are all been working largely from home. And you're working from home, you're working digitally. And if you're working digitally, are you saying it's only a temporary measure, or do I adopt it and blend it with physical as well as digital? I think from now onwards, it's a combination of physical and digital. So if you think about it, and let's consider this, a large consumer good company today do not have big websites because they don't want to compete with their physical delivery to the shops. They're saying, if I go digital, the shop owners are not going to buy me. The supermarket chains are not going to buy my product. That's not entirely true. Can you find a way of connecting the two? Living in a hybrid system, like a hybrid car. Honda has hybrid, Toyota has Prius. Hybrid cars will work. Electric cars will be more difficult. Can Akshara say, I will set up 1,000 recharging stations for electric vehicles? If I do that, then I will not only provide this for Mercedes or whatever your brands are, but for the others too. Talking about automobile, I'll give you another example. And this is actually could apply even to, Kerala Ayurveda has a very expensive Chavanaprash. And difficulty is to sell because Dabur is much cheaper. But Dabur uses products. We are far more, we believe, authentic. So let me give you an example in the car industry. You know Hertz, the largest car company in the world, and then you had Avis. Avis is a number 2 rental company, but much smaller. And normally you would say at the number 2 position, I will say, I am the, the best, I am this, I am that. You know what their advertising slogan was? Avis, we are number 2, we try harder. So from a consumer, you think, hey, it's very logical. These guys are a smaller company, that's why they are hungry. They will do more for me. And if they will do more for me, let me go and try them. And then when they went there, they had a relationship. As Avis got bigger, it forgot that mantra of saying, we are number 2, so we try harder. So I would say your point in all of this is to think through the customer from his psychology and not from yours. Similarly, for example, in the case of Chavanaprash, our thought should be, you should buy our Chavanaprash, which is more expensive. We sell a lot smaller, but why should you buy from us? Even though we are a smaller company, it's because we are more authentic. Why is our taste not as sweet as some of the others? It's because we are natural, and not all natural things are sweet. In fact, not all things good for you are not always sweet. And you'll be surprised how people get used to the taste. That's why people drink black coffee without sugar. It's not because it's sweet. So what I'm trying to tell you, the idea which prevails is the customer perception of your product. And that customer perception is built by sparking a thought and then cementing it through flawless service and relationship building, customer centricity, which is what Vivek talked about last time in his talk, which I know many of you attended because I attended too.
Thank you, sir. We have last few questions, and with the retail of the future around, how are we going to have a competitive advantage for our competition?
I think you actually don't try and necessarily compete with the retail, but try to build the customer relationship. I think if you build the customer relationship, you will reinvent that. Because to be honest, big companies, whether it's Procter & Gamble or PepsiCo or whatever, haven't been able to build that individual conference. And I'll give you a simple idea, if all of us can relate to. Let us say you are having a child, your wife and you have a baby at home and you want to just decide what is the milk powder that you are going to buy. Yeah, you may have a Nestle saying, buy so-and-so Nestle milk powder or Farex or whatever it is. But those are commercials. But if you know your neighbor has had a child and she tells you, I've had a baby recently and I've been using so-and-so brand, buy that. You will probably listen to it. And that's called consumer advocacy. Word of mouth. Word of mouth. And I think it's very crucial for us to build that. For example, recently, and I'll come back to this. Recently, what happened, our company, Kerala Ayurveda, has got hammered because of the fact that, the service business, people can't travel. People don't go to see the doctor. And people don't go to the resorts or go to your clinics. Now, we're trying to build a digital app by which the customer and the doctor are able to talk to each other. And we are basically providing the products directly sent to the customer including by Swiggy or Dunso or other professional means like that. So we send the medicine. Big idea, because you're providing a value to the doctor and you're also providing a value. And your tagline could be, would you like to see a doctor without a mask? Do the digital, because you can still see him later on afterward. Now, the same way, if you are able to find approach by which you are able to outthink the larger company by taking a leadership and ideation. I'll give you another example. Pharma, do you know that 80% of all pharma inventions on a global basis are today, not necessarily earlier, are not happening in big companies. They're happening with the small startups, the entrepreneurs, because the costs of research and development in bringing out a new pharma product is much cheaper, much, much cheaper. They are nimble. So if I would say to an entrepreneur, don't view yourself in a disadvantage. Because of digital, you have an opportunity. So every one of you, even if you're in a large group, and I know you have a few thousand employees, think of yourself small businesses. And remember, at the end of the day, one thing the digital does, it allows us to be rewarded based on performance. Earlier, it was perception. I'm coming from one company and going to the other. Oh, he came from that large company, so I will go to another one. And job hopping is very good. Today, if you look at it, should be very different. You have to make a connection with your consumer. And that connection with your customer or consumer is the one which you will always carry. And it's a lifelong connection. So if today you're telling the customer, no, I'm selling Honda, tomorrow I'm selling Hyundai, third day I'm selling Toyota, he'll say, what does this guy stand for? Where is your relationship? So I would say in your company too, or an entrepreneur, you got to be original, but you also have to hang in and build the relationship. Your wealth does not lie in the bank. It lies in your ability with the consumer and the connection with the doctor, because that is what is going to propel you to long-term prosperity.
Thank you, sir. That question was from Ms. Nishita. And we have the last question from Ms. Netra. If not through the advertisements, what else could be the option to get connected with customers as dealers to stay in their mind?
I think contact with every single customer. You might have sold to, I don't know, 300,000, 400,000 customers. How well do you know them? How well do you track them? Get in touch with them. Build a membership. It could be the Honda Club, Akshara Honda Club, which basically opens itself into its region to a special relationship. And you can offer outings for the family. You go beyond cars. You become a part of their family. And that, I think, is a very powerful mode today. Because look at the WhatsApp groups. How committed we are to the WhatsApp groups. In fact, before we see the official mail, we see the WhatsApp group. And usne kya kaha? What did he say? What did he say? How, it's a contact. Look at Facebook. We love social interaction. Why has it gone? Because we love a little bit of gossip. So what I'd say to you, figure out things not on an institutional basis, but on an individual basis. There is no other time in history where individuals can make more impact on society than now. Because small companies have no disadvantage or very few disadvantages versus large ones. Think about it, including all the Kerala Ayurveda guys. You are individual entrepreneurs thinking about what is your objective in the business.
There is one very interesting question. What is your daily routine for you to be so energetic? And you don't show your age.
Well, as after the Sham's introduction, you gathered that I'm not 40. I'm actually 68. And frankly, Ayurveda. About 15 years ago, I used to be suffering from blood pressure, cholesterol, hypertension, borderline and all. But I was surprised because I said, I've always been fit. You have this feeling of invulnerability. Nothing will ever happen to me. It'll only happen to other people. And frankly, it was a shock. I met Dr. Jayarajan, who was from Kerala Ayurveda, and he actually put me through something, and I went to this Ayurveda Gram resort, which is in Bangalore. And frankly, it changed my mind, because out of this, I came across feeling there are ancient remedies that are amazing. Because today, 17 years, I don't use allopathy at all. I do yoga. And I used to get a sore throat because I traveled so far 14 million miles by plane. And I have all possible privileges. Now, I always got a sore throat every few months, and I would self-medicate with erythromycin antibiotic. All that stopped. So I would say, for me, my personal inspiration is, well, frankly, don't take yourself too seriously. Think of yourself as a human being, look inside, and a lot of that comes with eating well and being balanced. Because frankly, if you're well balanced, your body will heal itself.
Sir, I have a question. This is related to automobiles. So you were talking about having a blend of a conventional connect with a digital establishment where your approach. Will community work in retaining the relationship and probably maybe a virtual mode of selling the car and have a community to retain your own customers?
I think that's a great idea. Ask yourself the question. Today, you go on to the so-called the automated dialing. He'll say, if you have this choice, press 1. After you go there, you have 6 choices. And you're listening to the same thing again.
Yeah, not
and
an
you say,
idea.
just let me talk to somebody, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
So the question is, can I keep in touch with the consumer so that he sends you, I mean, he relates to you if he has a problem. And if you can solve his problem, you will be there. And you give him comfort that you're being fair to him on pricing. He may be a little more expensive than some altu-faltu repair shop who will change a part or whatever it is, because that also he worries about. So what I suggest is the relationship with the community is crucial, but you got to create that community. And it's not necessarily a Honda community or a global community. You want to make it more local. So your digital marketing can be very localized, has to be individualized. This is the age of the individual. You put something on TV, you put something on, it just gets lost because you're spending a lot of money. A lot of people are not even looking at it. Because when the TV program is on, you're basically looking at the kitchen and say, "Arey, give me some tea or chai lao," or whatever it is. You're not really listening to that. However, if I send you something on WhatsApp, you will listen, provided, or a Facebook or an Instagram, if it's something which connects with you. So the idea is to reinvent your connection with the customer, which is actually related to what Vivek said last time. Customer centricity. The key is a relationship with the customer and give him a sense of trust that you can deliver. And over time, you will win.
Agree, sir.
The simple solution is to drop your price, but that does not work. Give value.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think a lot of thanking message, and many have mentioned that it's truly inspiring, and they have been motivated because of this talk. Thank you so much for that, sir. And Shyam sir, you can take over.
A big thank you to Ramesh for I know you're in the other part of the world. You're in Bucharest, and thanks for taking time off this morning to talk to all our team members and also members from Qatar. I think it was very inspiring and very thought-provoking. You've kind of given us new ideas to think to how do we reconnect with our customers. You also brought about a beautiful saying which the Japanese Prime Minister said, which now echoes and rings in my mind and ears. And you also brought about this analogy saying, which were the 2 defeated nations in the world, Germany and Japan. And look at the way they've rebuilt themselves. It's very true. This is a time when we've got to rethink, relook at our businesses and see how we can, on an individualized basis, using the digital platforms. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Instagram, it could be any other social media or the digital media to connect to the customers. That is most important. And that will, in the long term, like you rightly said, reap benefits to the consumer as well as the organization. It makes it do a win-win organization to both. Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Namaskaram.
Thank you.
God bless you, Shyam.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful human being, and it's a privilege to be associated with you. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.